What up? Appreciate you for joining me on another episode of Garments and Tycoons. I want to start by apologizing for my inconsistency. It's just been a struggle to find my groove with everything, with the brand. I'm a one man show. So, I just got to get a grip on my time management. But I appreciate each and every one of you for being subscribed and, continuing to show grace and patience for me. Today I'm wearing the Purple Cow Stephon Eugene short sleeve home sweater. This is a design that I released for my birthday this past April. It's been receiving a lot of great feedback. People love the design and the quality. So if you're interested in your Purple Cow short sleeve home sweater, just head over to StephonEugene.com, excuse me, where you can place your order. Give it about 3 to 4 weeks to receive it because we do them made to order. But yeah, on this episode, I would like to talk about being black and working in fashion. Um, and this is inspired by discourse that I've seen online within the black community where you got some people out there who try to glamorize entrepreneurship while at the same time talk down on working a 9 to 5. To offer my perspective real quick, working as an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur is not glamorous. It takes a lot of grit and yeah, it just takes a lot. And at the same time, there's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. In fact, you should definitely leverage both as long as you possibly can. I think the idea is to eventually branch off and do your own thing 100% once it's able to sustain you and your responsibilities. But until then, you should definitely leverage both. So that's my spiel on that. But one aspect that I feel like never really gets talked about is how a lot of times corporate America forces blacks to go into entrepreneurship and to go and do their own thing because there's no room for growth. Um, they get stifled, unfair pay, and who wants to tolerate that? No one wants to tolerate that. So a lot of times people are forced into entrepreneurship. Now, I wish there was a way for the government, by way of the SBA maybe, to enforce new business owners to undergo some sort of customer service class or customer service professional development before they start doing business, because I feel like that's what's missing. A lot of people just want to make a quick buck and do quick transactions. Well, any successful business owner would tell you that it's not one-off transactions that keep the lights on. It's having repeat business, having customers that come back to you over and over again. And you can only achieve that and maintain that by offering great customer service. My personal quote is, product is king, customer service is queen. So that's something that I carry with me as a business owner still to this day. And I give credit to, working at Nordstrom back in college for, enlightening me the importance of customer service and, doing right by people. So yeah, that's my spiel on that. But I remember reading an article from this person who I follow slash am connected with on LinkedIn. His name is escaping me, but I'm gonna go and find it while I'm editing this video, and I'll overlay his profile. But I remember reading an article that he published, and he was speaking to various people, various black people in the fashion industry. And it was sort of on the same topic, like how the industry and having a lack of opportunity for growth and to progress in their careers force them into entrepreneurship. And it doesn't seem like the industry is going to sway from that anytime soon. Most recently on my TikTok, and if you don't follow me on TikTok, please do. I did a video talking about how Kering, which is the conglomerate parent company that owns Gucci, Saint Laurent, and McQueen, just to name a few, they are appointing a new CEO who is set to start this coming September. His name is Luca De Mio. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. But he's coming from 30 years in the car industry, no luxury fashion industry. Well, no luxury fashion experience, excuse me. And that, when I saw that headline, that triggered me into, this video, because I've seen that happen and play out so many times throughout my career, and within the areas of the fashion industry that I've worked. These companies will sit here and seek out someone externally, oftentimes someone white or white adjacent externally, while overlooking black talent that's already employed with them, and know the culture of the company, know the systems, have shown loyalty and dedication. But black talent just continues to get overlooked throughout the fashion industry. And it's very upsetting, and it's disappointing to see. To provide another example, earlier this year, Women's Wear Daily reported, they published an article that reflected on the various different creative director and fashion executive appointments that happened throughout the fashion industry during 2024. And there was a cover page that consisted of, the various people who were appointed new roles. On that cover page, literally everyone on there was white or white adjacent. No black people, no black talent was highlighted. And, as a black person who works in fashion and has always had, aspirations of being successful in the fashion industry, seeing shit like that is discouraging, because it's like, damn, if I don't create something from the ground up of my own, then I'll never really be able to make a mark or feel a sense of real fulfillment. Because, personally, I have run into situations where I've gotten stifled and played. And, I'm sure there are other, black leaders throughout the industry who can attest to it. Like, this industry will play in your face if you let them. So, luckily for me, though, I can truly say from the bottom of my heart that from day one, when I was a sophomore in high school, when I made the decision, no, when I concluded that I wanted to have a career in the fashion industry, I knew specifically that I wanted to have my own brand. I wanted to have my eponymous label, and I wanted to grow, scale it, and be a commercially successful fashion designer. That's specifically what I've always wanted. And so But leading up to that, I've been able to acknowledge that, you need experience in the industry. So, when I worked as a buyer, assistant buyer with Neiman Marcus, that was just me just trying to get industry experience. But at the same time, I was always focused on Stephon Eugene. In fact, the first day that I started as an assistant buyer, I was, on the phone. I was in the trainings and having to get up and go to the restroom to take phone calls because customs was calling me because my sock order was coming through. So the focus and the attention to manage both for me has always been there and will continue to remain intact. But I just can't help but think about those people, the demographic of people out there who are not interested in entrepreneurship, because let's keep it real, some people don't want that. They rather have, a stable income working somewhere. And more specifically, there's a group of people who want that within the fashion industry, and they want to experience growth in their career, but yet they get they get stifled and they get plagued, they get overlooked. And it's frustrating. It's very frustrating to sit up as a black person and see mediocre white people climb the ranks. Like, yeah, it's very frustrating. So I just wanted to speak on that black black people get overlooked so much, and then they're forced to go into entrepreneurship. Just to kind of segue into talking about my personal experience working in the industry a bit. Um, I never played sports growing up. Fashion was always my thing. So when I got accepted into the executive development program with Neiman Marcus, that felt like my version of the Super Bowl. I'm like, shit, this is it. I'm gonna treat this experience like graduate school, while at the same time, low on the low key, I'm gonna continue to build my brand on the side. I'm gonna learn the ins and outs of the industry, and I'm gonna apply what's applicable to Stephon Eugene. So I worked for Neiman's in the buying office for about 2 years in Dallas. And upon leaving, I left because my wife and I, we felt like since our family was growing, we we needed to be around our extended family here in Houston. So that's what ultimately led to the decision to relocate. But upon leaving Dallas and leaving the buying office, rather than feeling like I completed graduate school and I felt this sense of fulfillment, man, that shit felt like I left prison, because the work environment was just so toxic. You gotta Man, let me put you in a frame of mind. I'm one of the few black people already throughout the entire, office, you know, throughout the entire corporate of the buying office. And even more than that, I'm one of the only black men amongst this sea of white women that's gossipy, messy. Man, the culture there was really shit. And then to add even more insult, the person who I reported to was a toxic leader towards me, at least. Um, she just didn't we just didn't jam. Um, to be quite honest, I think for whatever reason, she never wanted me to work in her office. I'll have to do another video where I really just spend time detailing, you know, laying out my entire experience, because yeah, I need to share this. But just to give a quick summary now, like I don't think she ever really wanted me to work in her office. And so, like, she just had it out for me. And I tolerated a lot of it, turned the other cheek for as long as I could until, I reached a point where I kind of had a blow up and, we had a coming to Jesus. And then from there, after having a coming to Jesus moment, things were a little better. But by then, it was just sort of like, bruh, I'm I'm over this shit. Like I damn near fell out of love with fashion from that experience of working with this woman. Um so it's experiences like that will cause a person to want to go and strike out on their own. But again, for me, this is really what I've wanted to do from the start. And now, social media is a big thing and media altogether is a big thing. So now as part of my pivot, I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate media to complement me as a fashion designer. And so, again, going back to my first video, my first episode for Garments and Tycoons, my intention for this is to, share the wealth of knowledge that I have and just offer a different viewpoint on myself and who I am and what I'm about. I recently watched a conversation with Tyler, the creator, and Rachel from the cutting room floor. She was the moderator, and Tyler, the creator, was speaking to a handful of creatives from across the country. And what did Tyler say that really resonated? Oh, Tyler was just saying, like, don't be afraid to branch out and offer different extensions of yourself. Like, you got to tell people who you are rather than allow people to tell you who you are, if that makes sense. So for me, it's like, in addition to loving the art and science of being a fashion designer and designing my own products, I also have like an interest in discussing the overall business of fashion, discussing, you know, collections, not only just from a creative standpoint, but from a business standpoint. What did it cost to invest into the various fabrics of a collection? Um, business moves that executives are making at these various companies. And so that's what I want to accomplish with Garments and Tycoons. And I would like for this to grow and become, of course, one of, if not the number one fashion podcast out there. So again, that's why I'm gonna put in the work to be consistent moving forward after this episode. But I say all that to say that for me, I'm blessed in that I have a vision for myself and what I want to create and accomplish in this industry. But my heart goes out to those who don't necessarily aspire to for entrepreneurship. They enjoy the industry at whatever level that may be, retail or corporate production, whatever. They love it and they want to just continue to grow, but they run into hurdles because of, racism. Like I know people who are very talented leaders in management currently in the retail sector, and they are stifled. They're placed with goalposts that could just continue to move for them, but for somebody else, they don't have. Another person who's non-black, they don't have to deal with that, and it's just unfair seeing shit play out like that every day, and it doesn't seem to be changing. So, of course, when I see headlines from Women's Wear Daily and Business of Fashion, talking about these people being appointed in these new roles, and it's just like, damn, the cycle just continues. They either playing musical chairs with the same white people or white adjacent people, or they're gonna go get a new white person from a whole different industry that don't have nothing to do with fashion. They would prefer to do all of that instead of investing in black talent, when the black American community is the one that really drives this industry on all levels. Like, debate your mama. Like, the statistics are there, the proof is there. Like, we move the needle. Therefore, we should be given more opportunities. But then there's the whole conversation of like, okay, you could sit up and beg and fight for, a seat at the table, but you gotta be real with yourself and acknowledge the possible mistreatment that you can face. Similar to what I faced at Neiman's. You know, um, but I do often think, like, for somebody like Pharrell at his level and Virgil when he was in that role, like, I wonder, do they deal with stuff like um, overt or covert racism at their level? Maybe, maybe not, because they stepped into that role with so much influence. So it's really a trade-off. Like, LVMH needs them more than they need LVMH. They appreciate the opportunity. They appreciated the opportunity and the exposure that LVMH offers them. But, they created their own world outside of that. So I don't know, maybe not at that level, but for them. But I would love to see a black woman be a creative director at one of these major fashion houses. But then again, man, going back to what I just said, rather than wanting to see a black woman there, how about we just lock in and support the black women who have their own brands where they're at, like Martine Rose, um, Grace Wells Bonner, who are two people that have been mentioned to be in the runnings for interviews at some of these various vacancies at these big fashion houses recently. But rather than trying to nudge them in one of them places, let's help them and invest in them in their brands where they're at, which is a whole nother conversation. But maybe I'm rambling and going on and on, but for sure, what I want to establish is that the industry is fucked up for not highlighting black talent more, because again, not everybody wants to step into the entrepreneurship lane. Some people just want to have a fruitful, peaceful career, working somewhere. So, you know, hopefully we'll one day see things change. But I know for me, that also plays a part in my why for wanting to scale Stephon Eugene. Basically, I just want to create the space for people who want to be in the industry but don't want to tolerate racist bullshit or racist culture, and they want to get paid adequately. I want to pay my people adequately. So this is all a step in that direction. The product, the podcast, the content is just all a step in that direction. But that's my spiel on this topic of, being black and working in fashion. Please subscribe to this channel. And, if you don't already follow me on TikTok and Instagram, please do. Please subscribe to the newsletter on stefaneugene.com. I'll provide all of that in the notes section of this video. Um, yeah, I'm gonna make sure that I'm consistent. I'm motivated. I'm figuring out my time management. I got a lot on my plate, but we're gonna manage it though. I'm a husband, a father, a business owner. We're just gonna continue to count it all joy and keep pushing.